Local school districts are losing millions of dollars every year because of charter school students who don't live where they claim they live.
It's your money, but the state's not helping the schools to solve this problem. Our Waste Watchers team wanted to know why. Here's Ben Amy.
Since charter schools started in the Capital District in 1999, local school districts have paid hundreds of millions of dollars for their students to attend. A majority of that money is paid for students who live in the district. But since 2011, 3 local school districts, Albany, Lansingburg, and Troy, say they have lost millions of dollars paying for children they shouldn't have. When there is a dispute between a public school and a charter school over how much money is owed, that's when the state education department steps in.
The charter schools then, whatever difference there was, goes to SED and asks for the money. That's called an intercept, and SED takes our money and gives it to the charter school without any further proof.
We're not even told who these kids are or what the addresses are or which kids are even being disputed. We're just giving a piece of paper with a deduct. It can be tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars.
The Albany City School District has seen the state take over $5 million since the Intercept started in 2011. Troy lost nearly $2 million last school year alone.
$1.8 million could go a long way in a combination of, added program to support our kids and to help the taxpayers.
And when the money is taken, schools say they are given very little notice.
We don't know which students it is for. We just have a dollar amount that we find out they're taking approximately 2 to 3 days before it's taken.
Public schools say they can't knowingly pay charter schools for kids who are not living in their district.
We can't legitimately process those payments if we don't have proof of residency. This is taxpayers' money, and we are not allowed by law to pay for out-of-resident kids.
So what are your tax dollars paying for? Well, in May of 2014, Albany taxpayers paid for a kid who supposedly lived here to go to a charter school. That's over $14,000 of your money taken by state ed for a child whose address was an empty lot. And in October of 2014, Albany taxpayers doled out another $14,000 for a child who supposedly lived in this boarded-up home. Albany School District knew that no one lived here, but state ed still took the money anyway.
The process, it was just too easy as it's designed for the charter schools to just say, well, we don't have to do any paperwork. We'll just file with the state and we'll get our money.
The districts say that state ed can fix this problem very easily by implementing some common sense solutions they've suggested to the Intercept process.
A real simple solution is, if there is an Intercept filed by a charter school, that the charter schools are required to provide proof of residency of those students that's current.
All 3 districts we spoke with say they will follow the law when it comes to charter schools, but want to do right by their own students and the taxpayers.
What we want, the ideal solution, is to only pay for those students that actually live in Troy. And that should be what everybody wants. It's what's fair to the taxpayers, it's what's fair to the school districts, it's what's fair to the charter schools.
Reporting in Albany, Ben Amy, News Channel 13.
News Channel 13 has been in touch with state ed for about a month on this story. We emailed questions 2 weeks ago, and they promised a response by or before yesterday.
Well, they missed that deadline, but they did respond this morning after the story first aired. They said residency needs to be determined locally because the state does not have access to the records needed to determine residency.
According to state ed, the Intercept process is an expedited process intended to ensure that monies flow to charter schools. And if it's not a dispute resolution process intended to resolve residency issues.
According to state ed's own numbers, Intercept took more than $2 million from Capital Region schools last year alone and more than $3 million statewide. You can find our questions and their answers at WNYT.com. We're continuing to go in depth on the issue of public schools paying for kids who don't live in their district to go to charter schools.
When there's a dispute over how much money is owed, charter schools can use what's called an intercept to get that money from the state. Ben Amy is back with a deeper look at the intercept process in our Waste Watchers report.
The state education department says last school year alone, intercepts were used to take over $2 million from Capital Region school districts. Districts say they refuse payment when they know students don't live in their district, can't verify the students live in the district, or know they don't go to a specific charter school.
We have some egregious examples of families that we know moved to Texas, moved to Virginia, are claiming residence in a place that we have visited and know it's an empty lot, or know it's a warehouse, know nobody lives there.
According to state ed, residency can be verified through proof of residence, statement from a landlord, utility bill, pay stub, or other methods. Districts say that they've been trying to verify where students live, but the state doesn't look at their evidence.
We continue to verify residencies, we continue to provide that information, and the intercepts continue to happen.
School districts also say the rules for intercepts aren't being followed. Intercepts for funding are supposed to be filed by May 31st of that school year, but districts are finding that isn't the case.
What's occurring is that the charter school is intercepting well beyond that deadline, up to the tune of 2 to 3 years after.
That creates havoc in the school district because we're into 1 or 2 budget cycles later. We don't have that money. That budget was gone 2 years ago.
State ed wouldn't go on camera, but told us in a statement the intercept process is expedited to get money to charter schools and is not designed to prove where students live. Schools say the process is too expedited.
We don't have the opportunity to come to the table and show the documentation of why we denied the claim.
Reporting in Albany, Ben Amy, News Channel 13.
We're going in depth to bring you all sides of this issue. Ben sat down with representatives from an Albany charter school today, and you'll see that report tomorrow night.
And we've been told the districts we spoke to about this issue now have a meeting with the state education commissioner. That meeting is taking place tomorrow morning. Public schools have made it very clear they feel the process for paying for charter school students needs to change.
The main point of contention for public schools is the Intercept process. But what did the charter schools think? Ben Amy sat down with them to find out in our Waste Watchers report.
To say that charter schools and public schools don't see eye to eye would be an understatement. Public schools see the Intercept process as the state taking money from them for students they shouldn't be paying for. Charter schools see it differently.
The Intercept process was put into place to protect charter schools from districts that are withholding money that are owed to the children who attend those schools.
Charter school advocates say the Intercept process doesn't need to change.
The process as it stands right now actually works as it should, in our view.
Charter schools in Albany describe intercepts as the final stage in a long residency verification process.
It's something that we do only as a last resort when districts basically have refused to forward tuition payments for students after we've submitted the proper documentation.
Charter schools also say they do everything they can to make sure they are following the law.
All of the schools, do their due diligence to make sure that we're billing the right districts for the right students. That's what the proof of residency process is about.
In fact, charter schools say they prefer to avoid the intercept process altogether because of the amount of time it takes the state to process the intercepts.
It's much more advantageous for us to work with the districts and get those residency issues resolved rather than go through the intercept process, which can really take 1.5 years from when we would actually originally have billed for the student.
Charter school advocates say in their mind the intercept process can be used as a punishment tool.
From day one, the districts have fought charter schools here in the Capital Region and all over the state. And so this just feels like the latest tactic to starve them to death.
Reporting in Albany, Ben Amy, News Channel 13.
We reached out to the state education department multiple times for an on-camera comment in our stories, and they have repeatedly declined.
Last night, we told you that the districts we profiled in our Waste Watchers piece were meeting with the state education commissioner this morning. That meeting was canceled, but we have been told it has been rescheduled for next Tuesday.
And of course, we will stay on it. Ben will continue.
Public schools and charter schools can't see eye to eye when it comes to funding.
State lawmakers have been working with schools and the state education department to try to fix the process, but they say compromise is needed from all parties. Ben Amy continues his investigation in tonight's Waste Watchers report.
For the past few years, Assembly members Pat Fahey and John McDonald have worked with local school districts about funding intercepts. Intercepts are when the state takes money from public schools when there is a disagreement about paying for students going to charter schools. Frustration is mounting as more money continues to be taken.
in 5 years for Albany to lose over $5 million when they have, done physical checks at homes, physical site visits, and said the student does not live there. It's the taxpayer on the hook for those monies.
Both legislators say that a majority of the time public schools and charters are able to agree on payments for students. But McDonald says there are some extreme examples of schools paying for students they shouldn't be.
We've had situations where districts have done their research and found out that they're paying tuition for a child that lives in Tennessee. As a taxpayer, we should all be mortified and upset about it.
Fahey says things have improved now that some of the worst perpetrators of those practices have shut down. But she says there's more work to be done.
We have been assured by SED that they would do some regulatory fixes, but Member McDonald and I have had a number of conversations about a legislative fix.
The legislative fix would be a bill that, if passed, would require charter schools to send residency information to public schools immediately when a student from their district enrolls. Legislators are hoping it doesn't come to that.
If everybody is willing to work together, we can make it happen. If not, then we'll legislate it and make it happen.
Reporting in Albany, Ben Amy, News Channel 13.
And of course, Ben will stay on this story.